What if I told you that poverty isn't just a financial condition? That it changes the way you think, the way you decide, the way you see the future. Not because poor people are less intelligent, not because they make worse choices, but because the human brain, under the pressure of scarcity, literally operates differently. This isn't an opinion, this is neuroscience. And once you understand it, you'll never look at wealth or poverty the same way again. Every month, millions of people wake up and face the same invisible problem. Not debt, not bills, not the economy, their own mind. Because here's what most people don't realize. Scarcity doesn't just empty your wallet, it occupies your brain. In 2013, two researchers, Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir, published a study that changed how scientists understand poverty. They found that people under financial pressure scored significantly lower on cognitive tests. Not because they were less intelligent, but because their mental bandwidth was consumed. Think of your brain like a processor. It can only run so many programs at once. When you're worried about rent, about food, about whether your card will decline at the register, those worries don't disappear when you sit down to work, or make a decision, or plan your future. They run in the background, constantly, consuming processing power you don't even realize you're losing. That's the invisible tax. Not money leaving your account, but mental capacity leaving your decisions. Imagine you're driving through heavy traffic while trying to remember a 7-digit phone number. You can do both, but you'll make more mistakes driving than you normally would. Now imagine that traffic never ends. That every single day, you wake up inside that traffic jam and the phone number is your financial survival. That is what scarcity does to a brain chronically. Mullainathan and Shafir tested sugarcane farmers in India before and after harvest. The same people, different financial circumstances. Before harvest, money was tight. After harvest, they had just been paid. The results were striking. After harvest, the farmers scored the equivalent of 13 IQ points higher on cognitive tests. Same people, same intelligence, different financial pressure. 13 points. That's not a small variation. That's the difference between average and above average, between making a sound financial decision and making one that digs you deeper. And this is where the trap begins. Because the decisions you make under cognitive load tend to be short-term decisions. Payday loans, skipping medical checkups, not saving, not planning. These aren't signs of irresponsibility. They're signs of a brain under pressure doing exactly what brains under pressure are designed to do: survive the immediate threat. The wealthy don't make better decisions because they're smarter. They make better decisions because their brain has room to think further ahead. When resources are scarce, the brain enters what researchers call tunneling. It's a survival mechanism, thousands of years old. Your brain locks onto the immediate problem and filters everything else out. If you're being chased, you don't stop to think about what you'll have for dinner. The tunnel is useful in the wild, but in modern life, the tunnel is a trap. Because the things you filter out when you're in financial survival mode, those are exactly the things that would pull you out of it. Long-term planning, networking, skill development, investing in yourself. All of that gets filtered, not consciously, not lazily, automatically. The wealthy operate outside the tunnel, not because they're born with better vision, but because they have the luxury of a wider view. They can afford to think about next year, about 10 years from now, about risk and opportunity and compound growth. The poor are thinking about Thursday. And the brutal irony is the more you're trapped in Thursday, the harder it becomes to ever reach next year. Here's where it gets darker. The cognitive tax of scarcity doesn't just affect decisions in the moment, it compounds. When you consistently operate with reduced bandwidth, you build habits shaped by scarcity. You develop a relationship with money built on fear and reaction, not strategy and intention. And fear-based financial behavior is almost always self-defeating. You avoid looking at your bank account because it causes anxiety, so you never actually track your spending. You take on high-interest debt because the immediate relief outweighs the long-term cost. And the long-term cost is something your tunneling brain can't fully process right now anyway. You don't invest because investing feels like a luxury, a game for people with extra money. And that belief itself is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make. Meanwhile, the wealthy aren't just earning more. They're operating in a completely different cognitive environment. They have financial advisors, accountants, people to manage the mental load of money so they don't have to. They have buffers, savings that absorb shocks, so a broken car or a medical bill doesn't trigger a full cognitive crisis. They have time, actual unoccupied mental time, to think about strategy instead of survival. The gap between wealthy and poor is not just a gap in dollars, it's a gap in available cognitive space. And that gap is self-reinforcing. Now here's the part that most financial advice conveniently leaves out. The environment you grow up in doesn't just shape your habits, it shapes your neural pathways. Children raised in environments of chronic scarcity develop stress response systems that are fundamentally different from children raised in stability. Higher baseline cortisol, stronger fight or flight responses, shorter-term reward processing. Not as moral failures, not as personal weaknesses, as adaptations to an environment that demanded it. This is why telling someone in poverty to just work harder, just save more, just think long-term, is almost biologically tone-deaf. You're asking a brain that spent years being shaped by scarcity to suddenly behave like a brain that never experienced it. The wealthy, by contrast, are operating with a cognitive inheritance, stability, safety nets, access to information and mentors and environments where long-term thinking is modeled and rewarded from childhood. That's not luck exactly, but it's not purely merit either. It's infrastructure, invisible infrastructure that shapes how a mind develops. So if the trap is this deep, if it's cognitive, neurological, systemic, is there any way out? Yes, but the path is not what most people think it is. The first step isn't earning more money. It's reducing cognitive load. That means ruthlessly simplifying your financial life. Automate anything you can. Reduce the number of decisions you have to make. Create small buffers, even tiny ones, that absorb shocks before they become crises. Because even a small financial buffer creates a disproportionate amount of mental space. Research shows that people who have just a small emergency fund, even a few $100s, show measurably less financial stress and better decision-making than those with none. It's not the amount, it's the psychological signal it sends to your brain. You're not in survival mode. You can think ahead. The second step is understanding the tunnel. When you recognize that you're in tunneling mode, when you catch yourself making reactive, short-term decisions, you can pause. You can ask, am I solving tomorrow's problem or next year's problem? The third step is changing the environment, not just the mindset. Mindset alone cannot override a brain built by circumstance, but environment can reshape a brain over time. The wealthy don't have better willpower, they have better systems. And systems can be built. We end where we began, but with a completely different understanding. Most people think money buys things, cars, houses, comfort, and it does. But the most underrated thing money buys, the thing almost nobody talks about, is cognitive freedom. The freedom to not think about money every single moment. The freedom to make a decision without fear clouding every variable. The freedom to plan, to dream, to take calculated risks, because your brain isn't already consumed with survival. That's the real hidden difference between the wealthy and the poor. It's not intelligence, it's not character, it's not work ethic, it's mental bandwidth. And now that you know that, the question isn't just how do I earn more? The question is, how do I reclaim my mind first? Because the moment you free up cognitive space, you start making the decisions that compound, that build, that last. The wealthy figured this out, some by design, most by accident of birth. But now you know the mechanism. and knowing the mechanism is always the first step to changing the outcome. Subscribe to Kairos. Think sharper, know faster.